He reminded me a little bit of Alexis Sanchez when he was at Arsenal, throwing his arms around the place, and you're kind of going, well, what's he actually doing?
But don't drink in the Oasis. That's obviously the main thing. Yeah.
That's good advice for Carrick Cross and Qatar, I'd say. Canada goosed. Belgium's golden generation lose their sheen, and despite just 1 point from their opening 2 games, it's still not safe to write off the Germans. Today, the Neymarless Brazilians are back in action, while Luis Suarez and Pepe go head-to-head in what could be a combustible clash between Uruguay and Portugal. We're joined by Daniel McDonnell, who saw Canada join Qatar in being eliminated from the tournament. But Dan, unlike the hosts, Canada gave it a good go.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, I mean, definitely, like Canada in this tournament have been a bit of a revelation, and it's very strange to say that about a team that's gone out gone out second, but like the first team that officially knows they're going home, and that's obviously it's obviously a bit of a sort of a a bit of a sickener. Yet they've they've actually brought a little bit of colour, brought a little bit of life. I've been at both of their games; they've both been quite enjoyable, and they've had little stories around them. And I don't know, I mean, I suppose some people would say it's just all about the result, isn't it? And those who ascribe to that theory, which is pretty accurate one, might sort of not have enjoyed Canada as much, but I did. The World Cup is about stories, and I think Canada have churned out more stories than most in their own way. Just maybe too many almost from their perspective, because they really managed to annoy the nation of Croatia. Not a nation you really want to really annoy, I found.
No, a peculiar. They roiled them up pre-match, and then they woke them up with the start that they had in the game. I mean, both of us fancied Canada to get something from the game, and it looked that way even for the first 15, 20 minutes. They got a great goal to go ahead, but whether that I don't know if international football teams pin newspapers on dressing room walls or screenshots on dressing room walls or whatever it is these days, but certainly the Croatian media didn't take too kindly to what the Canada manager said.
Or the players. No, I mean, Kramaric scored twice and came in afterwards and thanked John Herdman for motivating them by saying you're going to they're going to F Croatia up. I mean, sometimes you think this is the media bubble, and some people will come in and go, "Nah, we don't pay attention to what was said." This is the point. Croatia, like proud football nation, they were listening and they were motivated. And Zlatko Dalic, the coach in the pre-match, said they were annoyed by it. They found it disrespectful. He came in afterwards talking about John Herdman not being there for the handshake, and says there's things he needs to learn. So no, they were properly riled by it. Like we mentioned it yesterday. I mean, there was a Photoshop sort of nude image of Herdman in the Croatian tabloid, one of the Croatian tabloids on Saturday. That same one after the match produced a front page, which is basically translated as "Nobody will F us," with a picture of celebrating Croatian players. But there's no doubt that the Croatian squad were well on board with this. They were happy to take it. And of course, Herdman has been asked any regrets, and he was like, didn't regret it after 20 minutes, but then sort of said maybe he could have been a little bit more composed when he came out of his huddle. But I mean, that's the sort of the very the headline friendly story. Also, as well, Canada. I mean, they went and they played 4-4-2 against a team with a midfield of Brozovic, Modric, and Kovacic, with Perisic also cutting inside. And I did mention it in my piece today. It's a decade since Whelan and Andrews were outnumbered by Croatia at the Euros, and Canada with 39-year-old Atiba Hutchinson, the oldest outfield player in the competition, and Eustachio, one of their best players, but who was injured, had to go off at half time. They ran rings around them. The approach was completely, it was cavalier to say the least. They tried to change it in the second half, but the damage was done, and they sort of got ran all over really.
Yeah, it did look like Croatia finally found something. I mean, they were poor in their opening game against Morocco, and that result, though, subsequently looks a little bit better given what happened
this
with
is
Morocco.
A crucial point, actually.
So I think probably I certainly read too much into how ordinary Croatia were, and probably didn't read enough into just how poor Belgium were ahead of the game with Morocco yesterday.
Yeah, but also, that Morocco-Croatia game, right? It wasn't a thriller by any stretch of the imagination. But and this is the thing about these tournaments, right? You can come in and you can do all your research, and you can sort of learn off facts like the leaving cert or something, and come out with sort of general lines. But like, I was sort of looking at the Morocco squad during that game against Croatia. I was like, hang on, they got fullbacks playing for PSG and Bayern. Okay, they got Ziyech, who everyone knows about. But you look where the players were, dotted around the top clubs. I think I mentioned it yesterday. Maybe not that much depth beyond their starting 11, but like
Mm-hmm.
their sort of starting 11 playing at really good teams. So it's one of those things where, like, that Morocco-Croatia game, okay, maybe it wasn't a thriller, but I don't think it was that bad. Like, I don't think the technical level of it was maybe that bad. And
Mm-hmm.
in a group that we've said is a very competitive one, it might just be that sort of that was just they were the standout too. And I suppose we may as well talk about it now. I mean, like Belgium, they've pretty much just produced two terrible performances back to
Yeah.
back, and left themselves in a situation where they need to beat Croatia, who look
Croatia.
like they're in who are in good heart. Like, they have to beat Croatia because Morocco are the ones that are laughing, and they're
Yeah.
effectively true, really. So it's just a matter of whether they're going to play Spain or Germany, and what way that's going to pan out for them. Like, if Morocco go and win the group, they're probably going to play Germany in the round of 16, you would think, or Japan. Either
Yeah.
way, like, they're potentially in a good place. And Belgium most certainly are not. They could be the. It's funny, we talk about Germany and Argentina, but the big gun to fall in the groups could well be Belgium.
Yeah. I mean, some of the pre-match stuff coming out of Belgium was extraordinary. There was De Bruyne and Hazard both basically saying, "Oh, we should have won it 4 years ago." De Bruyne was again. There was some phrase. Sometimes these things can get lost in translation, obviously, but he was speaking. He said he speaks 4 languages, so it's difficult for it.
Mm,
He wouldn't really have that excuse. But there was some kind of line he had, which was along the lines of, "I have to temper my expectations, or I have to realize that I can't make these players better," or something along those lines. Something
mm.
very, he's a player that even in the game today, he reminded me a little bit of Alexis Sanchez when he was at Arsenal at that stage, where he's throwing his arms around the place and everyone's looking, saying, "Well, oh, his teammates aren't backing him up," and you're kind of going, "Well, what's he actually doing?" I know
Mm.
he got a man of the match, which is a bit of a joke in the first game. He didn't do very much yesterday either. So, you know, it's all very well for players to throw their arms up in the air and say, "You're not at my standards." But if you're not at your own standards, like, that's none of the Belgian players have come near what they're capable of, and so far. And Martinez, you know, I know there was a phrase used by somebody once. I think it might have been you told me that a former managerial colleague of his said that he'd love him to speak at his funeral because he could convince people that he wasn't dead. And
Yeah.
there was, like, it's very, very difficult to see them turning anything around. The last sting of dying wasp, but it's very difficult to see with both the mood music coming out of the camp and the performances.
Yeah, I mentioned that I haven't been at too many, say, pre-match press conferences over here, but because they're all on in this big media center, this big old airport, like, you just get an announcement going, the such and such press conference is now starting in 10 minutes, and there's 8 of them a day here. But I just happened to be there, so I may as well go down and watch the Belgium one, and the mood was very downbeat, and even like Martin, as I said, yeah, he's the eternal optimist, and very like. Very, it can be very charming, but you could sort of sense there was just a little bit of strain there. I know what you're saying about De Bruyne. It's funny, the Canada game was a couple of times. It was like he was just his passes were a yard off, or half a yard off, and Party is thinking, well, Haaland can make those passes. Haaland can make those passes look good. And De Bruyne is my favorite player in the Premier League, right? I think he's
Absolutely, and one of mine too.
amazing,
Absolutely.
amazing
Hmm.
player. And but it's clear that, like, there's a frustration with whatever the setup that's there, but what's around them, and it's not looking great for what Martinez, Henri, Anthony Barry. It's like
Yes.
it's this is a sort of a dream team for Irish angles, but we're not going to be plucking them out, I don't think, in the latter stages the way things are going.
Doesn't look like it. I mean, the game last night then, Spain and Germany. Obviously, we we spoke last night about how, or yesterday, about how the result of the early game between Japan and Costa Rica would impact on Spain and Germany. And look, Germany did played very, very well. I thought it was, you could be lulled in by Spain sometimes with some beautiful passing, and I thought Germany kind of went toe to toe with them. And obviously, it was a draw and came out. They're now with a victory, more than likely going to go through in second place. But did you see much of the Spain Germany game on your way back
Yeah.
from Croatia and Canada?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the thing. The psychology of that, as we said, we did mention it. The psychology of that opening result was crucial for Germany because a point was a good result, whereas another scenario, a point was a disastrous result. So, like, crucial. But yeah, no, I did. I got back from Croatia, Canada, which was my first time in the Khalifa International Stadium. Very different stadium to the other ones because it did exist before. The World Athletics Championships were here in 2019, so it's a multi-sport facility, so it has the facility to have a big running track around the pitch. Those stadiums you go to where you can tell there's either a running track there or there's the shape is there to sort of manage a running track. So it was almost like an old Eastern European qualifier or something. The feel of the actual stadium, very very quirky enough. But anyway, yeah, I got the media bus back to the main centre and was able to go into the famous Oasis Lounge.
Oh, you
The
made
bar.
Oasis. Very good.
I met the Oasis. I didn't have a drink. I mean, this is a lot meta alcohol here, and listen, everyone can make the life choices they want. I mean, I may not even live up to my own life choices like tomorrow, but I definitely thought, do I really need, for the sake of it, to have a €14 can of Budweiser that much for the sake of it, watching a match for 25 minutes? I reckon I could just get by without it. But it was pretty full. A lot of FIFA heads there, a lot of media there. It's sort of outdoor, people smoking, drinking. Like this is the real Qatar you don't see,
Okay.
So I don't know, big screen, Matt Holland co-commentating, and what else could you want, in a venue? But did get to see Germany's comeback, and got to see sort of, as you said, like a deserved result for them that puts them in a completely different headspace. As you mentioned, like a win against Costa Rica should probably put them through unless Japan can suddenly shock Spain. Like, I know they've a little bit of goal difference work to do, but you would think they should be capable. And the mad thing about it is, if Morocco somehow end up winning that group, then Germany would be playing Morocco in the round of 16. Their potential quarter final would be against sort of, if Brazil were to win the group, they would be up against sort of the Brazil runners up or the winners of the Ghana, Uruguay, Portugal group. So again, not so like there's actually a route there for Germany, like to the semi-finals. They could well be favourites for all of their games until they get to the semi-finals. Through a particular way. Now, again, that's jumping a little bit far down the road, but it's suddenly a better place for them to be in than what we were talking about them potentially being eliminated 24 hours ago. Now they are very alive.
Yeah, I think those games, particularly against teams like Spain, who can, death by a thousand cuts kind of thing. That if there is an issue with morale in a squad, and it's always, it's always tempting to overanalyze team morale and these kind of things. And you hear sometimes you hear, via say RTE, if Didi Hamann is on and he's saying things about media, German media, and pressure on the manager and all that. But if you go 1-0 down to Spain with half an hour to go in a game that you need a point out of, if things aren't right in a camp, it's very, very easy for that to go under, for that to become 2-0, 3-0.
Yeah.
The late red card to show that you care, and then they're effectively out of the tournament. And they reacted really, really well. I mean, Musiala was excellent. He should have scored. He had a great chance that he should have scored. And eventually they did equalise. I mean, they could have scored a couple. They could have scored a couple of 3 goals in the game. I think that's going to give them a huge amount of confidence. Obviously, they got to finish that off. But as you said, like that side of the draw, whoever comes through that side of the draw, the Moroccan group, as we discussed, Morocco, Belgium, Croatia, none of them have been massively impressive so far. So, like anyone who they get, they will definitely fancy their chances of getting past.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like that's definitely there for them. I mean, it's sort of a, I mean, it's a great story in a way. Like Fulkrug, Nicholas Fulkrug, who's like what I think he was playing in the German second division this time last year. Like it's very hard to be surprised in major tournaments now by the identity of players. Like, okay, sometimes you can get caught into the bubble. And I certainly can. You know, you're just following Irish stuff and Irish players in England and stuff, slips by you. And I'm not going to lie, we're not coming out of COVID, so I'm not following the Bundesliga that closely. Um, but it's very rare that you sort of have a player in a tournament he's pushing 30 and he's
Hmm.
such a sort of a late developer. It's like a sort of a Ricky Lambert style story or something, like in the
Hmm.
German context. Um, and he's with Werder Bremen, and he's somehow like in his third or fourth cap he's scoring against Spain. He's
Yeah,
big
third
number
cap, I
9.
think. Yeah.
Yeah, big number 9, and you're sort of thinking, yeah, like I mean, no matter what way you play, there's always room for a goal scored number 9 on any side, even if it's a very late developing one who may not be a massively prolific one, but he might just be what you need at this point in time.
Hmm.
And good finish, I mean, Sane at the end, he could have they could have nicked it, wouldn't they? Couldn't they?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
no,
Yeah.
I think they're suddenly. I mean, Germany and Argentina. I mean, and all this stuff about team who loses first, who loses their first game, they never do anything afterwards unless they're world class like Spain. That may still be true. Maybe they're like expanding a lot of mental energy to get this far, and it sort of catches up on them eventually. Um,
Hmm.
but they're certainly in position to go pretty deep, definitely.
Hmm. So still only Qatar and Canada who've gone out, but today looks like being a day when a couple more could join them. So we might get into our predictions for today. We go start 10 in the morning Irish time with Cameroon, Serbia. Roberto Lopez was strong on Cameroon. He thought they would produce something they didn't in their first game. Uh, Need to definitely get something out of the game against Serbia, which is going to be, two teams who lost their first game. It could be one of those kind of Wales Iran type games where eventually someone has to go for it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And the thing about like Pico spoke about them, but then Abubakar didn't actually start the game for Cameroon, which is a little bit of a surprise, I think. Um, I'm actually going to this game. Not really sure why I put it down when I did. I just did. Serbia, I suppose, their World Cup campaign did start against Ireland with Mark Travers having a bad day. That's where it all kicked off for them. Um, and what on paper it doesn't look like a game that would sort of stir you, as you say, like when you have two teams who need a result. Sometimes these can be great games. There can be sort of huge drama around them. So, do I have a strong prediction for the game? Um, mm, you see, I'm struck by what Pico said about Cameroon. I sort of spoke about the early games. There can be sort of attrition love still if there's a little bit of heat. Um, and there's reasons to believe like Cameroon could get a result, but I just can't help but feel that Serbia will bounce back and win. I'm going to go for Serbia to win 2-1.
Yeah, I'm going to go for a 1-0 Serbia. It's, I think it could be fiery as well. These games where passions kind of run high in these kind of must-win games. After that, then we've got South Korea and Ghana, which, without putting words in your mouth, I'd suspect, like me, even possibly less expertise in this one than the first one.
Yeah, although I like Ghana, just because they always deliver a story in tournaments, and like even the game against Portugal where they could have got the result at the end when like there's
Hmm.
always some madness involved in Ghana. Chris Hughton, of course, is their technical advisor, so he is involved there as well too. Um, yeah, I don't know. Like there was a sort of a chaotic element to that first game in a way. Um, I don't know. Like South Korea is Son slightly inhibited. You kind of wonder would that potentially be a concern. Um, Again, a game where both teams could do with a win, but might end up in a draw for me. So I'm going to say a 1-1 there.
I'm going to go for 2-0 to Ghana. I'm not
Oh,
100% sure why, but I'm going to go for 2-0 to Ghana. It would be great if they're all still involved and Ghana playing Uruguay in the last game to go back to, was it 2010?
2010.
Ghana,
Oh yeah,
Uruguay.
we'll reflect on that. That's probably often I go to. I say often. I mean maybe like once every 2 years, I speak to like a journalism class, and you speak about examples of games you've covered and match reporting, and Ghana Uruguay in 2010 is like, to me, the textbook example of deadline pressure.
We'll hopefully
We can
we'll come
return
back
to
to
that
that.
when
We
they
will come
play
back to
each
that,
other.
whether it's
But that was,
whether there's something riding on it or not. I think
yeah,
we could certainly do it. Hearing a little bit of what you say to say to the future generation, Brazil and.
Go to the Oasis. Don't drink in the Oasis. That's obviously
good
the main
advice.
thing.
Either in
And
Qatar.
don't do 2 games in one day. Don't do 2 games in one day if one of them is an Al Bayt Stadium. But like, that's more niche advice that I'm going to.
That's
pick
good advice
now.
for Carrick Macross and Qatar, I'd say. Brazil and Switzerland. I think I'll go with. I might go for a draw in this one. I think maybe 1-1. Switzerland, I think are. I'm not fully sure why, but Brazil were very, very good in the end part of that game, of the first game against Serbia. I think Switzerland probably can pack the defense out more, try and frustrate them even a little bit more than Serbia. So I'm going to go for 1-1 in this.
Okay. I am, for all my bluster about not doing 2 games in one day, I am tempted. I possibly will put myself in the waiting list for this game in the morning and take my chances, because there will be like a direct bus from the Cameroon-Serbia game to the Brazil stadium, which it turns out is quite close to where I live. And the whole thing is, I mean, if you have the chance to attend a Brazil game that's maybe 5 metro stops away from you,
Absolutely.
why wouldn't you do it? So I'm going to throw my name into the lottery in the morning and see. Like, it's hard. I know someone put themselves in for Spain, Germany today, and they were told they had like a 2% chance, and it didn't work out for them. But I'm going to give it a go. Brazil, I don't know, is Neymar being out a bad thing? Again, a little bit like Barstool analysis in a way, but is there something in it as well too? In that they played so well in those last few minutes, and maybe it's just infused them with a little bit of life or something. Switzerland don't have the pressure that they need a result in this game. Like, they still, again, how earlier games go might have some impact on them too. Like, if it finished in a draw, they're in a very good position. But yeah, I'll go for Brazil to win 2-1.
And finally, Portugal and Uruguay could be, as I said earlier on, could be a combustible clash. Suarez, Nunes, Pepe, you put all those into the mix, and then you'll have, Ronaldo possibly against Godin at the other end. So it's certainly
nil all for me. I'm going for nil all. I'm going for nil all. I mean, could Uruguay have another one? Maybe, but just have a feeling of a 0-0 feeling around this one.
I'm going to go for 1-1 in this one. I think it should be fairly, maybe 1-1 in red cards as well, just to pop that one into the mix.
Yeah, well, it depends if Pepe plays, though, isn't it? I mean, he didn't play in the last game, so that's the slight niggle. Like, are you going to get the aggro that you necessarily anticipated? Not that it's obviously exclusive to him, and like, I think Suarez didn't look as most energetic either. But I mean, I see your point. Like, we talk about the big players delivering. I mean, you need a couple of the big villains to pop up as well too. So I mean, maybe at least one of them will.
Yeah, they always say styles make fights, so this could be a case of that. Thanks for that, Dan. Hopefully you get to the 2 games. We'll be back tomorrow. I'm Aidan O'Hara. This is the Indo World Cup, and catch us on YouTube or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.